Black Power, Shalom, and Assalamu Alaikum. This is the official challenge to Dr. Wesley Muhammad. I am Brother Reggie. This official challenge will be in several parts. This challenge is an enormous interest, I think, to the black world. The first part is for Dr. Wesley Muhammad to explain with the few sources that he gave in his work, Black Arabia and the African Origin of Islam, how he can, with academic credentials, personally draw a map like this as an authority source that the ancient Egyptians called Taneta and the entire Saudi peninsula Punt. The second part of the official challenge is on page 211, Islam's peaceful penetration. Interestingly, he wrote this on page 211 because the Arab penetration into Africa was Africa's 9/11. Lastly, I do not believe my last point on this official challenge is debatable at all. Dr. Wesley Muhammad claims that there is an African origin of Islam in his book. I believe that Islam was revealed by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and everything else before his revelation is called fitrah, not Islam. Here are my points for the response of the official debate challenge and my commentary and what I believe and why I believe it is not debatable. Recently, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, while watching a video that I was speaking on with Brother Shaka Amos and Brother Polite, he got concerned about some comments that I made about his work and that I had said I had a debate with him on 125th Street and that he lost. He reacted by telling his audience that we never even had a conversation. He also called the host channel and asked that the video be taken down because it was not true. As a show of respect for Dr. Wesley Muhammad, the very popular host video channel, Sa Netta TV, Black News 102, took down the video. In reaction to this, I put up the only clip that I had to prove that I had a debate with Dr. Wesley Muhammad. I never said the clip had the entire debate, but I did say that the debate was witnessed. Now, after seeing the clip, he says he remembers and he calls it just a build, and he says that he did not recognize me. Here is his emotional and disrespectful remarks. I'm saying that this is not Islam, nor is it academic. So let's get to the issue and stop playing around. I was debating Dr. Wesley Muhammad about his comments that Arabia was Taneta and Punt. Since when is a scholar so beyond reproach that we cannot question or debate them in our community? At any rate, your response is of enormous concern now to the African people because Dr. Wesley Muhammad sees a Semitic origin of Nile Valley, Africa, ancient Kemet. Here are my points for Dr. Wesley Muhammad to respond to. I will introduce my arguments. In your book, Black Arabia and the African Origin of Islam, second printing, second edition, 2009, on page 40, you begin your argument that Arabia is Taneta. Your argument for the location of Punt and your assertion that it included both East Africa and Saudi Arabia on page 42 is devoid of primary sources. Please list primary sources that you have examined yourself to make the assertion instead of quoting European scholars. Certainly, without an examination of primary data and conflicting views, you can't produce new knowledge. In addition, black scholars have a special responsibility to examine primary sources themselves when creating new knowledge. You cannot defend your points by just listing favorable sources to your argument without discussing and eliminating opposing arguments. Show where you have eliminated opposing views rather than simply listing favorable sources to make your point. What you have done is attempted to put Punt in Saudi Arabia through secondary sources and then once done say that this is Taneta. Even if the people of Punt traveled over to Saudi Arabia, there is no evidence the Egyptians knew of this or that there is primary data to prove this. We do not even have primary language artifacts of the people of Punt. We believe your lack of primary data dissolves your arguments as simply as conjecture. This is Dr. Wesley Muhammad's map as drawn on page 44. It says figure 15, Arabia, Kusha, Dwipa, Taneta, Punt, according to ancient Egyptian, Sanskrit, and Greek sources. There's a small caption on the map that says the Nile Valley and Arabia, yet the period is unknown. First, the map used to substantiate your argument is a modern map of geographical areas from at least the period of AD Arabia and beyond of the world. A better source would be a map of Kemet that was drawn in historical periods of Kemet, or at least marked historical places or show Egyptian trading partners. I will introduce a map of at least 6th dynasty and later of Kemet with ancient Egyptian, Greek, and modern names. The second map I will introduce will be a map of the Herodotus world at that period. The third would be a trading map of Nile Valley Africans based on several time periods. None show significant interest in Saudi Arabia. The last map I will show will be Dr. Wesley Muhammad's map again. First map, historical map of Upper and Lower Kemet with Greek and modern name as well as Kemetic names. A map of the world of Herodotus. Next, a map of trading partners with ancient Kemet throughout several historical time periods. Last, again, is Dr. Wesley Muhammad's map. In any case, the map you offered in your drawing does not even begin to speak to the known world at that time. About the coloring in of the places, your sources do not give you any specific license to draw the map as you did. For the audience, this is what we were debating about on 125th Street. At any rate, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, show based on the sources you gave how you have the authority to draw a map as you did and make it an authoritative source. Please show where you included Egyptian, Sanskrit, and Greek sources in your work on this issue. Your comment on page 44, identifying Punt with the whole of the Arabian Peninsula, including that portion on the African side of the Red Sea, rather than with just the south of peninsula, is consistent with the meaning of Ta Neter, God's land. As Abdel Aziz Salah has pointed out, the term covers a region of vast extent and means the Orient, i.e. east of Egypt, northeast, as well as southeast, footnote 147. It is a synonym of and replaced the earlier Egyptian term Akhet, which means the Far East, footnote 148. Let's examine your experts for a minute. Your use of a general statement from Abdel Aziz Salah does not in itself prove the point with a preponderance of evidence that the places east, as you have mentioned, is considered Ta Neter. Here are your footnotes, and certainly for the audience to look up the sources if they can and review. We are saying with your current source, Abdel Aziz Salah, show how you can identify Punt with the whole of the Arabian Peninsula. In addition, Ta Neter does not mean God's land at all. So the question is, I am not so sure your use of Ta Neter as God's land is yours or Abdel Aziz Salah or from other sources. Ta Neter means in the most general sense divine land. Kemet has never imposed or used the word God. This is mostly a Greek and major Western religion phenomena. Please make available the bulletin's location library or online source. We have some access to academic libraries to satisfy any possible copyright issue hesitations that you may have of providing us this source. At any rate, prove as you say that the Egyptian term Akhet means the Far East, as in geography, instead of horizon or where the sun rises. Please prove where the Orient replaces the Egyptian word Akhet for the benefit of black people. We believe that the word Orient was a term used to take Egypt, Kemet, out of Africa. Prove that Ta-Neter means God's land rather than divine land. Here's a hurdle you must cross. Here's the Egyptian word for Akhet. The symbol looks closer to describe the horizon and where the sun rises rather than a geographical place as the Far East, as you say. So there's a Meta-Neter word for Akhet in Meta-Neter, and then there is the symbol Akhet. So we would definitely like you to prove that it means the Far East rather than having to do with the horizon or where the sun rises. You say on page 45, as Punt was sacred to the Egyptians as the source of their race. Footnote 149, at least some of their race, we are not surprised to discover the Arabian Cushites consisted some of the pre-dynastic population. This is not to revive the long-dead theory of the invasion of the so-called dynastic race from the east. Footnote 150. This is now rightly rejected as there is no evidence of a military invasion into Egypt in the late pre-dynastic period. It is also evident that the majority of the Egyptian population had a southern African origin. Footnote 152. There is, however, significant genetic and archaeological evidence of migrations into the Nile Valley early in the prehistoric period from Western Asia. Here are your sources. For the benefit of the audience, prove that you can show significant genetic and archaeological evidence of migrations into the Nile Valley in the prehistoric period from Western Asia, as you say. You did not footnote that sentence. Please include modern genome data from an accepted scientific source. You did, however, footnote the following. 152. It is also likely that some of the southern populations that migrated northward had itself originated in Arabia, having crossed the Bab el-Manab into Africa. Thus, H.R. Palmer appropriately affirms there is ... no reason to doubt the tradition that a period which may be placed between 5000 and 2000 BC, Asiatic nomad races called Cushites were driven first south of Arabia and then across the Bab el-Mandab into Africa. Sudanese Memoirs, Lagos, 1928, 2-2. In footnote 152, it seems that you are making a point for your source that your source did not exactly say or make. You are saying based on his work that the Cushites originated in Arabia, and he is saying that they were Arabian nomads called Cushites. He did not specify an origin. You did. This in itself, we believe, is not good scholarship. So prove that the Cushites originated in Arabia, as you say, rather than Ethiopia or Africa, and since you used his source, show where the Arabian nomads were called Cushites. So Punt is an important part of ancient Kemet's legacy. The Nile Valley Africans themselves have only traveled to Punt several times. There is the 5th dynasty in the Palmero stone describes Punt. There is also a story of the dancing dwarf from Punt in the 5th dynasty. During the 6th dynasty, the official Harkuf provides a comprehensive account of 4 expeditions he undertook to the south to Iam or Yam, and a brief mention of Punt. Evidence shows largely that in this time period it was Nubia who largely served as an intermediary between Happy Valley and Punt. During the New Kingdom, the pharaoh Hatshepsut immortalized an expedition to Punt on the walls of her mortuary temple, and Ramesses III, an exhibition to Punt, is detailed in the Great Papyrus Harris. Certainly, Punt is a part of Ta-Neter. However, there is nothing in Kemetic literature that shows an interaction across the Red Sea. It does not matter that the people of Punt may have crossed over and interacted with the Saudi Peninsula. The point is that this was not a factor for the ancient Egyptians in knowledge. In discussing Punt, you did not cover these important issues. So we are now asking you, with your academic credentials on the line, to prove with the sources that you gave and with any other sources that Punt was essential enough to ancient Kemetic or ancient Egyptian life that you could tamper with ancient Egyptian history by drawing the map as you did, encompassing all of Saudi Arabia as Punt, with the limited, if any, interaction directly between ancient Egypt and the Saudi Arabia. In closing, I am asking you to prove the following. Please list primary sources that you have examined yourself to make the assertion instead of quoting European scholars. Show where you have eliminated opposing views rather than simply signing on to favorable sources to make your point. Please show how, based on the sources you gave, how you have the authority to draw such a map and make it authoritative. Please show where you have included Egyptian, Sanskrit, and Greek sources in your work on this issue as primary sources. Please prove where the Orient replaces the Egyptian word Akhet for the benefit of black people. We believe that the word Orient was a term used to take Egypt, Kemet out of Africa. Prove that Taneta means God's land rather than the divine land. Prove that you can show significant genetic and archaeological evidence of migrations into the Nile Valley early in the prehistoric period from Western Asia, as you say. You did not foot that sentence. Show with an accepted genome source. Prove that the Kushites originated in Arabia rather than Ethiopia or Africa, and show where the Arabian nomads were called Kushites. We are now asking you, with your academic credentials on the line, to prove with the sources that you gave and with any other sources, especially primary sources, that Punt was essential enough to ancient Kemetic or ancient Egyptian life that you can tamper with ancient Egyptian history by drawing the map as you did, encompassing all of Saudi Arabia as Punt. We see no record of Kemet interacting with Saudi Arabia. Lastly, explain what primary sources that you use to disproportionately draw Arabia on your map as to infer that the huge landmass of the peninsula influenced ancient Kemet or was a major part of the Nile Valley history. This conversation is of enormous concern to the black world. To spare the expenses, you can defend your scholarship in any medium that you fit. You may not consider me a scholar. However, as a citizen of the black world, I ask you to show with your academic credentials on the line how you can redraw the history of ancient Egypt with the limited sources that you gave in your book. On the challenge of the official debate on whether Islam's penetration was peaceful or was it violent Arabization, I want to say that there are many things in the Quran that are beautiful. But in practice, after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, it seems that it becomes Arabization to the death of Africans. My point, you say that Islam was dispersed peacefully in Africa and that you claim the Umayyads were a black dynasty and the crimes against black people were because of the Abbasid. I disagree. Islam was not spread peacefully in North Africa, nor West Africa. Though you quote Sheikh Anta Diop, you are wrong, and your book, Black Arabia and the African Origin of Islam, leaves out the jihads in Northeast and Northwest Africa that spread Arabism. The Bach Treaty was not a peaceful treaty that you said, but a threat and enforcement treaty. I certainly would be interested in a debate on the spread of Islam in Africa. Lastly, I make the following point, and I would believe that the majority of scholars, both religious, secular, and revolutionaries, would agree. Islam, as the world knows it, has no origin before the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Everything prior to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was fitra. The Quran and other teachings say so. Even Abraham and Moses did not know Islam until the faith was dictated by the angel Gabriel to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and thus revealed. There is no African origin of Islam. Islam is revealed to man by the Prophet, peace be upon him. Anything from any other culture, including Africa, that contributes to the Islamic world is only fitra. Here from the teachings and finally from the Holy Quran. The Prophet, peace be upon him, reported that Allah said, I created my servants in the right religion, but devils made them go astray. The Prophet, peace be upon him, also said, each child is born in a state of fitra. Then his parents make him a Jew, Christian, or a Zoroastrian. The way an animal gives birth to a normal offspring. Have you noticed any that were born mutilated? Collected by Al-Buhari. The Holy Quran 30:30 says, so set your purpose for religion as a man upright, Hanafin, by nature, fitra, the nature fitra framed by Allah, in which he created mankind. There is no altering the laws of the creation of Allah. Whatever was contributed to Arab history and culture and Islam before the Prophet Muhammad was fitra. You know, and you should inform correctly. This is not a personal attack to your scholarship. This is a disagreement. You are not above critique, especially when Africans have died at the sword of Arabization. I have debated in public in short, meaningful moments with Dr. Cornel West and Dr. Louis Henry Gates. You are not even beyond that scholarship. Your comments about my debating on 125th Street is equally arrogant, and it seems that you think that you are beyond reproach. Marcus Garvey, Du Bois, Arthur Schomburg, Dr. Clark, Dr. Joseph Ben Jokanan, Brother Malcolm, Minister Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, the BLA, Dr. Jeffries, Brother Smalls, Dr. Khalid Muhammad, Dr. Shashi McIntyre, and hundreds more debated on 125th Street. Dr. Wesley Muhammad, you are not beyond critique. I want you to know something about Harlem. There is a heart-warm respect between the Islamic community and the Black nationalist community in Harlem. I do believe that you should seek guidance from Mosque number 7 and beyond for debating me on Islam's peaceful penetration into Africa. We have learned to respect the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on the differences on how the Black man in America should understand Islam and its history, and we have found a mutual respect for each other. I don't think that that should be disturbed. Please respond to my critique. If you want to debate on the jihads, let the community know. The scholar event promoters, Sarnetta, Polite, King Simon, they may be highly interested. In closing, I am Brother Reggie. This has been the official challenge to Dr. Wesley Muhammad. I leave you with Hotep, Black Power, Shalom, and Assalamu Alaikum.